Hi. Today I want to talk about the service of African Americans in the Great War, or what we usually call World War I today. We didn't know there'd be a second one. So when African Americans are called up to serve, they're serving in what was then known as the Great War. When the United States declared war on Germany in April of 1917, most African Americans were supportive of the war effort, okay? About 400,000 African Americans served in the military at the time, and would serve in that conflict. That's double the number that had served in the Civil War. So think about that. Twice as many African Americans are serving in World War I. What's interesting, though, as you think about it, the demands that they're meeting, the experiences that they're having in what many call the first modern war, the reception that the Americans and many gave black soldiers and sailors, very, very hostile. You have to keep in mind that the military continued to be segregated. Many whites didn't think that blacks were up to the task of serving, and they certainly weren't going to serve under the command of a black officer. So there were very limited opportunities for African Americans to rise in the ranks. To give you some numbers, there were about 10,000 black regulars in the U.S. Army in 1917. The 9th, the 10th, the 24th and the 25th Infantry regiments in the Army. There were about 5,000 black men in the Navy, but virtually all of them were waiters, kitchen attendants, stokers down in the ship's boilers. These were not positions of prestige, okay? They were service, okay? The Marine Corps didn't even allow African Americans to enlist, to serve. And so you see that there are African Americans who are serving, but in many cases they're relegated to some of the worst jobs in the military. Now, I don't want you to think there weren't African Americans who served in combat units. There were, and some very notable folks. I've actually included a video for you to watch about the Harlem Hellfighters, a National Guard regiment that came out of New York City, probably one of the most famous groups. African Americans, for the most part, supported the war and the war effort. Du Bois actually said at one point, he said, if this is our country, then this is our war. We must fight it with every ounce of blood and treasure. So you've got African Americans who want to serve, who enlist, but when they actually get to service, they're going to face a lot of racism and discrimination, okay? One guy, I've included a little clip for you, is one guy that I want you to pay attention to is Charles Young. He's going to be a colonel in the U.S. Army. He was eligible to serve in World War I and to lead black and white troops, but there was such a fight against that that the U.S. government, the U.S. military said he shouldn't serve. He was in ill health. I think they said he had a heart condition. To show them that he was in perfectly fine condition and could serve, he had served admirably in the Philippines and in Cuba and in Mexico earlier. He decided he'd ride a horse from his home in Ohio to Washington, D.C. to prove that he was perfectly healthy. Ultimately, they did let him serve, but he did not command white troops. So pay attention to Charles Young. By the end of the war, Du Bois could see that black loyalty and sacrifice had really not eroded white racism. He wrote in The Crisis, black magazine at the time, that black people were determined to make America yield to its democratic ideas. He said, we return from fighting, we return fighting. Make way for democracy. We saved it in France, and by the great Jehovah, we will save it in the United States of America, or know the reason why. It's interesting that in case after case, African Americans are some of the first to enlist, to want to serve, and they do this for a number of reasons. One, they're Americans, and they want to prove to white Americans in particular that they are eligible, that they deserve equal treatment under the law. They want to show the world their patriotism and that they're deserving of equality and equal treatment. So as you read about African Americans in the Great War, pay attention to that. Notice those things that they are doing to prove themselves and what that means for the individuals, but what that means for African Americans in general living in the United States at the time.